And we're live. Hello, kids. How are you? This is your second to last video for your CBE classes. It will be on The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And then I'll make a shorter video, hopefully, shorter video later about maybe some literary terms and things like that to remind you of them because they will show up on the test. But this should be easy for you guys because you did really well when we did public speaking and we talked a lot about these terms, whether it's metaphors, similes, figurative language, what is a theme, what is a tragic hero, etc., etc., which if you've been watching these other videos, we've mentioned a lot of them already. So just be prepared for some of that to show up on the test. And I'm pretty sure I have a Kahoot. So if you want to go back and look at some old Kahoots on these literary terms, I'll double check. I'll post the link and then you can try to do that. And hopefully that'll help you. And hopefully I'll see you guys when you take your final test. I'll go to Agostiniano and see you guys so I can say bye-bye because I miss you guys so much. So anyway, let's get to it. We are talking Paulo Coelho today, and check out my little avatar. I got my little, oh, that's not my avatar. That's my avatar. Look, it's the Paulo Coelho avatar. Hi, there he is. But yes, guys, this is the book, The Alchemist. I don't expect you guys to read this full book, although I do recommend it. It's not a bad book. I actually didn't have time to read the book myself, so I listened to an audio version of it, and you'll get the link in a second. This is the link to my video lesson, which I am recording right now. So after it's done, you just click on there and you can get this lesson. I'll send you guys the slides. Whoops. Whoops. And I pressed the wrong button there. That's me talking. Anyway, and so let's get a little bit of who Paulo Coelho is. So Paulo Coelho, he is a Brazilian lyricist and novelist and a musician. So I knew him more as a lyricist before anything. I didn't realize that he also wrote books, but if you ask your parents about Paulo Coelho, they probably know him as the guy that wrote some songs for Elis Regina, for Raul Seixas, and a lot of these famous artists from the 1970s. He was very much a hippie, and then he kind of, straightened his life out later on. But he was born on August 24th, 1947, in Rio de Janeiro. He attended a Jesuit school. As a teenager, he wanted to become a writer, but his parents were against it. And he was sent to a mental hospital at the age of 17 for being so stubborn about this. He really, really wanted to be a writer. And then he went on to law school, abandoning his dream to become a writer. Okay. And then for 1 year, I'm sorry, a year later, he dropped out of his law school. And let me just check something, guys, because I'm always afraid. Okay, my audio is coming out. And a year later, he dropped out and lived his life as a hippie, traveling through South America, North America, Mexico. I think I know a few people that have done that, some people that we know, or a person. I'm not going to name any names. Um, and in Europe, and he started using a lot of drugs in the 1960s. Okay. And then when he returned to Brazil, he worked as a songwriter. He was also arrested and tortured even for his subversive activities, because remember, this was during the Brazilian military junta. He also worked as an actor, journalist, and theater director before pursuing his writing career. So, when did he become officially a writer? He published his first book called Hell Archives in '82. And then, after he did a pilgrimage to Santiago, he got inspiration to write The Alchemist. Actually, the main character of the book is called Santiago. So the connection is clear. And if you guys don't know, there's a Camino de Santiago. It's this long hike or trail that you take. I believe it's in Spain. And a lot of people get spiritual awakening out of that. Now, The Alchemist was his biggest book. it has gone on to sell more than 65 million copies, becoming one of the international best-selling books in history. It's been translated in 80 different languages, so it's got the Guinness Book of World Records for that. So it's a very popular book. I know I heard about it in the US even before I came to Brazil, and not because, my parents were Brazilian. Everybody knows The Alchemist. I never had an interest in reading it, so this is my first time reading it. And which is strange because as a teenager, I did read a lot of books that were considered, spiritual, quote unquote, like the Celestine Prophecy. And I really like Richard Bach, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and The Bridge Across Forever, and books like that, Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. So I did like stuff like that, and I still do. But for whatever reason, I never thought that I would want to read The Alchemist. And I didn't until just recently. And I still haven't read it. Technically, I listened to it. And you can see here a whole bunch of books that he's written, and they're very colorful and pretty. Now, Paulo Coelho, he still writes, okay? He had a book come out in 2014. He's published 30 books, okay? 3 of them are autobiographical, okay, while the majority of the rest are fiction. He sold more than 170 million books in over 170 countries, the majority of those being The Alchemist. And a lot of his works have been translated into 80 languages. Okay, so he's the all-time best-selling Portuguese language author. And here's a quote for him: "Be brave, take risks. Nothing can substitute experience." And these slides, by the way, 2 to 8, I got from SlideShare. So you can check that out. Now check this out. Oh, I did it again. The Alchemist. Not sure if you can hear that, but this is the audiobook, guys. Like I said, I didn't have time to read this whole book. Even though it's not a long book, it's not a difficult read. The language is very simple, but it's still a book, and I have a whole lot to do. And I imagine you guys have a whole lot to do too. And I had to read all the other stuff too for the CBE. So, but I listened to this. Look, it's 2 hours and 54 minutes, guys. It's not long at all. And if the English is too difficult for you to listen to for almost 3 hours, although I suggest you do it, guys, it's a Portuguese language book. And I always recommend reading a book in the original language. So, because there's some things that aren't translatable. So, if you want to listen to it in Portuguese, maybe you can find the version in Portuguese. I should have thought of that. I didn't find there's probably a Portuguese audiobook out there. Or just get the book, read it if you haven't already. But we will talk a little bit about the plot. In fact, if you want to, guys, 2 helpful videos. They're short. They're about 6 minutes each. One is from Course Hero, and it gives you a summary analysis of the book, kind of just tells you the story. And the other one is a short plot overview, okay, piece by piece. Every time I click that, it is that. See, look, I'm trying to change slides, and instead I'm clicking the video. But anyway, but I'm going to give you a quick plot overview if you don't want to watch those other videos, but I suggest you watch them because they go even deeper than I'm going to go as far as some of the plot points. But here you got point by point. Introduction 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is rising action. Climax is at 9, and then falling action 10, 11, and the resolution. So what is that about, Phil? Well, there you go. It's that. It's going to connect to these numbers here. And I believe I got this from Course Hero too. So Santiago dreams of buried treasure at the pyramids. That's how the book starts. He's a shepherd, and he keeps having this dream over and over that he finds this treasure. By the way, spoilers, if you have not read the book. He keeps dreaming that there's this treasure. Okay, so one day, I think he's at the market, if I recall. He runs into 2 people. He runs into this old woman. He's kind of like a gypsy, and tells him that he needs to listen to his heart, all this kind of spiritual stuff, and just kind of when it comes to this dream. And then he meets this guy called Melchizedek. And if you are religious at all or know anything about religious, Melchizedek is a character from the Bible that meets Abraham in the middle of the desert, and he gives him gifts. And some people, especially from the Christian faith, connect Melchizedek as a messianic figure, like Jesus before Jesus, because some Christians believe that Jesus showed himself in many different ways, even in the Old Testament. And Melchizedek, they think, is a form of Jesus because he just appears out of nowhere and he kind of just disappears, like he's the king of where and this and that, So, and he gives Abraham these gifts, which some people would consider like gifts of knowledge. So this Melchizedek character kind of has the same function in this book, where he gives Santiago knowledge. He gives them this impetus to go after whatever it is that's going to bring him to the point where he's going to find this treasure. Okay? And so Santiago does this. And he goes to this place called Tangier, and a thief robs him on the first day. He's very dumb. He gives the thief some money to go, I believe. Oh goodness, guys! Now I forgot. But he's gonna, I think, to get a boat or something. He wants to get to Egypt, okay, to these pyramids. So he asks the thief to help him, but the thief walks off with the money. So now he's stuck there in this place, and he gets a job helping this guy that has this crystal shop. He spends quite some time there. Okay, there's a big part of the book, him in this crystal shop. But the important part of this is that while there, he helps the guy with the crystal shop get his sales up. He organizes the shop, and he makes his money back. He makes enough money to be able to make this journey. So, well, we'll get to that at the end, why that's important. So then he travels across the desert by caravan. That's where he meets this Englishman, okay, who's also an important character in the book as far as the dialogue that they have between the two of them, where the Englishman is looking for the alchemist, looking for an alchemist, because he's been studying alchemy. And by the way, what is alchemy? That's important. Alchemy, guys, is this idea that if you mess with certain chemicals and certain metals and certain elements, you can make gold. That's the final resolution of alchemy for a lot of people. It's just we are able to make gold by being able to mix and play around with certain chemicals. They call this fool's gold. Sometimes it's like fake gold, but that's what alchemy deals with. But because it requires a lot of patience, a lot of playing with a lot of different chemicals and elements, a lot of time alchemy is connected to, you know, kind of crazy science, or, people that are very spiritual too, because they're trying to understand all the elements of the earth. And there's a whole spirituality element to alchemy that even goes into astrology and other topics, but it was very popular. In fact, one of the greatest scientists of all time, Newton, was an alchemist. So there was a time when alchemy was considered this uh, kind of a dark science, but the science of those that are elevated enough to be able to understand it and mess with it. So the Englishman is after this understanding of alchemy, this greater understanding. So he heard that there's this alchemist out in the desert, so he's going after him. And Santiago just happens to tag along. And they reach an oasis, because they realize that there's warring tribes in this desert, and they get a messenger that tells them, look, best thing you could do right now is find a safe space for you to be, because it's not a good time to be crossing this desert. And they find an oasis. And while they're there, Santiago meets this lady called Fatima, and he falls in love with her at first sight. And he also has a vision of an attack on the oasis, which is a pretty intense scene because the chiefs of the tribe are like, who's this outsider who's having these visions? And it's so intense where they say, look, we're going to prepare for this attack, but if it doesn't come true, then you're done. Like, we're going to just kill you, get rid of you. But he trusts his vision. And in fact, the attackers come, they're able to fight them off. And then this old man arrives, and it's the alchemist because he heard about this vision that Santiago had, and he's willing to help him. And he guides Santiago. He he tells him, Santiago tells him about this dream that he had and why he's there, and he guides him and gives him kind of like this spiritual guidance to where he needs to be. I'm repeating the same thing, guys, because that's basically what he did. Uh, but the important part is they become friends, and he takes him out into the desert, and he says, "We're going to get to these pyramids and where this supposed treasure is." And they are captured during this journey through the desert. Captured by one of the warring tribes, and the alchemist makes a proposal to the chief of this tribe that captured him. He said, "Look, in 3 days, Santiago is going to turn himself into the wind, because he's a great alchemist. He's a great wizard like me." And the guys are like, "What?" And they said, "Okay, if he can turn to the wind, we'll let you go." And he's like, "Okay, he's going to do it." So he's got 3 days to figure out how to turn into the wind. And he does. That's the climax of the story. He turns into the wind to escape. And he continues this journey by himself. Okay. He gets to Egypt, but then he gets beat up by some refugees, which is pretty funny. And he does not find his treasure in Egypt. But one of the people that beat him up tells him that he's been having this weird dream that there's some treasure way back where Santiago lives, back in a little village. It's in Andalusia. Okay. So Santiago has to go all the way back to the village, and then he finds his real, actual physical treasure there. So that's the story, guys. Kind of a long winded story. Here are some of the characters that we have. We have Santiago, who's a shepherd. We have the crystal merchant, Melchizedek, which I explained, the Englishman, the alchemist, Fatima, the woman he falls in love with, the old woman who is the old woman who is the kind of gypsy character at the beginning, the camel man, which is just the camel guide, and they have some interesting conversations. The chief, well, not sure which chief they're referring to here. By the way, you can get the full. Actually, let's open that and see which chief they're talking about. This is from Literary Devices. The chief appears in the novel when Santiago reaches the oasis. Okay, he tells the chief of the war that is imminent. The old chief arms his tribesmen, Santiago's advice, but on the condition that they would kill Santiago if his prediction is false. But he was right. And then the young thief is the one that steals his stuff. Okay, because he says he's going to be his guide, and he ends up stealing his money. So these are the main characters. Now, what are some themes in The Alchemist? Okay, there's a whole bunch of them, but here are some that stand out. Same soul. Everyone and everything is alive and has a soul. The same soul, because we're all made of the same hand. So there's this whole idea of we're all connected to each other in the universe, and you got to listen to the universe, listen to that connection you may have with some other people. And there's this soul of the world. This is said a lot in the story. The soul of the world, the soul of the world. It governs all things. When you want something with all your heart, you are closest to this positive force. That's why this book, I mean, it was written in 1988, but it got a lot of new readers around the 2000s. I remember this book came out called The Secret. If you look on my screen here, you've probably seen it. The Secret. And you have it right there. The Secret. And this whole idea of positive intention, you're going to bring things to you that you want to come to you and things like that. This is The Secret. We also have universal language. What is universal language? There's a universal language that can be understood by everybody. And it's very basic stuff like love and understanding and intuition, okay? It is written, our life stories, the history of the world, and the future are written by the same hand. So there's a bit fate versus destiny debate in this book. But it seems like some things are destined to happen, and we have to listen to that destiny in order. So we have to make the choice. So we do have free will to follow the destiny. The master's work, the elixir of life, the philosopher's stone. Again, those are things out of alchemy, because alchemy also tried to deal with this thing about living forever. In fact, the alchemist, he's really old, and maybe never dies. He's just been around. And in alchemy, some folks believe that you could actually be able to live forever if you got the right combo of elements in your body. Love. Everyone on earth is capable of understanding the language of the heart. Um, and intuition. Well, I just mentioned immersion of the soul into the universal current of life where everything is connected. Desire. Dreams make life interesting. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. And again, if you're into new age stuff, The Secret, all of this, it talks about this idea. And we have manifest destiny is another term you could use for that. You manifest your own destiny. If you think about negative things are going to happen. If you think about positive things are going to happen. Purpose. Everyone has a central role and path to follow. You have agency. There's a literary term. Personal legend. What you have always wanted to accomplish. Life is generous to those who pursue it. Okay. There's a great definition of the word luck. It's when opportunity meets preparedness. So be prepared so that when the right person knocks on your door, you're able to answer that call. And you may say it's lucky, but you were prepared. Because imagine if that person knocked on your door and you weren't prepared, then you wouldn't get the opportunity. Oh, it wasn't luck. Action. Making a decision is only the beginning. You only learn through action. And that's why this book it's very long-winded. He goes here, he goes there, he spends a year there, 6 months here. And you're like, where is this going? But it's this idea that he had to live all of those experiences to get him back to square one, which is back to his village where the treasure was the whole time. But he needed those experiences in order to appreciate the treasure. Imagine, guys, if you won the lottery tomorrow and now you have, I don't know, 300 million reais. Wonderful. But do you have the knowledge, the information, the maturity to know how to use that 300 million reais? There's so many stories of people that win the lottery and they lose it all in 6 months, just going to parties, drugs, prostitutes, whatever, buying. I mean, even famous people. There's a famous actor called Nicolas Cage, and he went broke. He was in a lot of very big movies. I don't know if you remember him because you guys are a little young, but he was in a lot of big movies when I was a kid, up to maybe 2004, 2010. I can't recall now. But he lost all his money. Now he's doing all these really weird movies. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, just to make some money, you know, because he didn't know how to manage his life. That requires maturity. I see some things in my life that Had it happened to me when I was younger, I don't think I would have known how to handle it, especially when it comes to music, playing out. Because when you play out, there's a lot of beer, there's a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of negative influence that you can have when you're a musician. And I don't know if 18, 19-year-old me would have been able to handle it if I got a lot, if I did it all the time. I prefer doing it now as an older me because I know my limits. I know, okay, I don't need to go to that party after. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that to still have a good time and play some music. So that's an important theme of the book. You need to go through a journey before you get the treasure at the end. Okay, otherwise you won't know how to use that treasure. Like it's like throwing pearls to the swine, like Jesus said. Tests. You're going to be tested on this journey. It's not going to be simple. Texas Tech this year, right? Was not simple, guys. But trust me, what you went through this year is so important for your life. How difficult it was, especially when you have to go to university. And if you think Texas Tech was a lot of work, wait till you get to university. Wait till you get to life when you're an adult. So this is a huge theme, and I think that's why this book is so cool for young people. So if you don't have time to read it now, as a because of how little time you have, I suggest, maybe during the vacation, take some time and read it. I think you may get a lot out of it. I think as a young person, you appreciate it more than I did reading it now, because I kind of already knew a lot of this stuff. And the book does tend to get a little preachy, and trying to teach you stuff. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's nice to hear it again, but I think I prefer that message in some other books that I've read, including Hermann Hesse. If you ever want to read a really good writer, read some Hermann Hesse. He's a German writer. Attitude. You have a choice. So there's choice, right? You have destiny is written for you. It's almost like a chessboard. At the end of the game, there's always going to be either a checkmate or a stalemate. Those are kind of the only options you have in a chess game. So it's closed, right? There's not much you can do. You can't go outside of the board, but you have the choice of how to get to that last, um, to that end game, to that last move. So this is a way that you can imagine, how do you reconcile destiny and free will? You have free will, but within that board, okay? And your attitude is what's going to help you possibly get a better result. But understand that you will be tested. And presence. Concentrate always on the present moment. You're watching this video now, focus on this video. It'll be over soon. I think this is my last slide. Don't worry too much about the past. It's past. Learn from it. Think about the future in terms of planning. We talked a lot about this last year. That's important, but don't stress about it. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So all your plans can just blow up in your face. Okay. That's why it's always good to have a backup plan. But, don't stress about the future because you don't know what's coming. Don't stress about the past. You don't know what happened. Like, anybody knew? Did anybody here really know about what was going to happen this year? Come on. So you just have to kind of go with the flow sometimes, right? And roll with the punches, I think, is a better expression. Because if you go with the flow, sometimes the flow doesn't take you to the right place. Trust me. Roll with the punches. You know what that means? If somebody punches you, look at me. Look at me. Here. Wait, I got to take Paulo off the camera. Somebody punches you, roll with it. Okay? That's what the expression roll with the punches means. And if anybody watched some Mike Tyson this weekend, he was doing the punching. Roy Jones was the one that was trying to roll with it, but it was very difficult because Mike Tyson is intense. So, yes, guys, that's it. Look at that. 38 minutes, not too long. Yeah, that's my last slide. So I guess I will just go back to the first page. All the way back. And there we go. We got our Mr. Alchemist himself. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Like I said, I'm gonna make one for the literary terms that'll be out soon. I'm gonna send these slides to you in your Gmail. So, well, if you saw this video, you already know that. And have a great week. Okay, get ready for those tests. Love you guys. Have a good week. See ya.